Hey guys, welcome to another online remote lecture here for Research in Tech, Spring 2020. I hope everyone's doing all right. Miss you guys. It's going to be a bummer to have a class and not see you guys again to the end of till next year, I guess, because this year is in the books for being on campus. But we'll make do and do the best we can. Hope everyone's doing well. A lot of different things are happening right now, and so just be safe and you'll be fine. Guys, also, I know you're mostly business majors there, and one of the things too is you might be following the stock market and things like that, as I do. And one of the things I would, if people are investing now, that's great. You guys are young, and this is the way you will eventually manage and build wealth over your life. Or if you're not, this is a good opportunity to actually start doing your research on these kinds of topics. I'm not one to give any advice on what to invest in or anything like that, but now's the time to really start doing a little bit of homework because there could be exciting opportunities for you. And just kind of learn about it a little bit, what mutual funds are, or ETFs, or retirement accounts, and remember that these type of investments are for the long term. It's not something that happens it's not money that you need in the next year or 5 years. You want to start looking at the next 20, 30, 40 years even. So just something to think about and give you some homework about. But getting back on track on what we're doing here. So I spent the past week going over your first drafts. Most of them I've had a chance to respond back, and everything looks good so far. And like I said, just your next step, that I had posted an email on what your next assignments are, and just keep track of things there or on our Google Classroom on what you're going to be doing. So really the next step here is to then revise and take the just keep going over it again. A lot of times, I know a few of you, English is not a first language, and and it's troubling, especially without having the writing center. And I'm not an English major. To help you, I could just do the best I can to kind of gear you. But the advice I could give you for that, and this goes for anybody in the class when you're drafting, is you just got to keep reading and reading it over, and you'll find the mistakes as you do it. If you just kind of whip it together and then just sort of put it away, chances are it's going to be filled with a lot of grammatical errors and things like that. So that was kind of one of the common threads throughout the class. If someone had a comment about it, no one's picking on you individually. That's something that's just in general. Or like I said, if English is, several of you, English is not a first language. So do the best you can. And like I said, so your next assignment will be to kind of revamp your draft and submit a second draft. Okay. After that, looking ahead, we're going to start going into the methodology, which is sort of what we consider in the class to be your field work. Everything we've done in the literature review is all information that you've taken from external sources and sort of came to some sort of a research conclusion, or just facts that you've collected. So now it's time for you to do your own stuff, which is kind of fun. As I brought up to you before, you have two options on how to go about doing the methodology. The first is if you want to interview somebody, and the second is if you want to take a survey or conduct a survey. A lot, it really depends on the nature of your subject. Me as a musicologist, interviewing is very critical, is getting first-hand information from people. Whereas surveying doesn't really, at least in the research that I've done over my career, hasn't been necessary. And so I can certainly tell you I'm not an expert on it, more than just sort of using common sense on how to do it. For interviewing, so you'd have to decide on what's going to be work best for you. Now, for interviewing, first of all, you want to choose somebody that's sort of an authoritative manner in your field. The best suggestion I could do is to interview one of your professors. They're available for you. They're supposed to be available for you, and it's something that you can reach out to, pretty successfully. Now, Also, if you do decide to do this, this is something that you want to contact this person, you know, a good amount ahead of time, so they have the time for you to do this. Obviously, with our circumstances, interviewing in person is probably not the best route to do things. So your interviewing is going to have to be over the phone, which is fine. I've done telephone interviews for 25 years, and they work out well. Interviewing interviews over the internet via, well, you could do it this way if you wanted to, doing like Zoom or FaceTime, but doing it through email is the least effective, and I would only be used, or I would only accept it if it was an absolute last resort. So what your best bet to do is contact the person you want to interview ahead of time. Say, I'm one of your students, or former students. I'm taking this course, and this is something I'm doing for my paper, And it's not going to be the case that someone's going to turn it down, but they might be busy too. I mean, what we're doing here with all this stuff going crazy with everything is time consuming. So you want to just make sure you give them enough time to take care of that. So once you got that so if you're doing the interview, so get that locked into place. And the equipment that you're going to use is the best thing to do is using some kind of a voice memo device to record it, because you're going to want to record the interview and then transcribe it. And then you're going to analyze it further down the road for your methodology. So if you're using an Apple product, what I do is I'll take if you go to utilities, you'll see voice memos. And what I'll do is I'll record that, like on, let's say, the tablet or if you're using a computer or laptop or something. And then I'll have the phone on speaker, so it'll record sort of simultaneously. That seems to be the best way to do it. If you don't have that sort of access, I'm sure there's something that you could figure out, or you could talk to me about it. We could figure something out. You'll next want to go over to Blackboard, and you'll see interviewing tips as one of your course content. Let's see if I can get this up here. Just read through it and sort of see if you can get some better ideas on things. Building a rapport with an interviewee, make them feel comfortable with you. Don't start by briefly telling them what you're doing, and you want it to be sort of conversational. The last thing you really want to do is just sort of be aggressive right away with this person. Doing your research before you start, which is important, because you don't want to just ask people stuff that you can just easily find. You want to find information that you feel is unique and original. Even, like I said, taking notes during a session. I just record the whole thing. If that's impossible, you have to take notes, or you can just take notes anyway. Like sometimes I'll take notes just for follow-up questions. Ask specific research questions. Be prepared to follow up again. Avoid value judgments. Ask questions in a very neutral manner. Don't try to be aggressive or try to throw some kind of agenda to them. It's not the point. It's not the point of your paper either. Avoid leading questions. Do not put words into the interviewee's mouth or answer questions for him. A lot of times, bad interviewers, and this is something that, we see even in professionals, they try to just talk over the interviewee, which is just annoying, and you're getting nothing out of it. Let the person talk. That's the idea. To say the least amount, the better. There's some interviewing things. Actually, there's interviews that I posted on our YouTube page that you could see, like Larry King and some of the do's and do nots. These are things we would have shared and had a little bit of fun with in class, but if you have time, you can look at some of the people who are really good at it and some who aren't really good at it. For instance, like I'm a big sports fan, and so I listen to Mike Francesa a lot, and he just, to me, is not a good interviewer because he's just constantly talking over the person. So that's something you really don't want to do. What else? Ask one question at a time. Again, you're going to ask 3 questions at once. You're not going to get a strong answer. So try to do something where it's just one thing at a time. Be careful of your own interpretations. This is how interviews are taken out of context. So a lot of times, especially if you're transcribing the interview, you'll hear it back and it's like, well, that's not what I said, or it's not what the person meant. Be respectful of the person's time. You don't want it to be, if they want to keep talking, let them talk as long as they want, but you want to try to sort of curb this to 20 to 30 minutes at the most. again, make sure if you're going to tape them, always tell them ahead of time, is it okay for notes that I'm recording this? And it's never happened to me that they say no, but the law requires that you have to tell them that somebody's being recorded. Use future follow-ups. There may be something that comes up later that you may have like, oh man, I should have asked them that. That could be a situation where you kind of give them a quick email and be like, oh, I forgot to ask you this or something like that. And then the next thing they'll be like, oh yeah, okay. Don't try to but don't bludgeon them with like constant questions back and back. They'll just get annoyed and not even respond anymore. It's just like, they gave you your time. That's why I say do your research and do all your questioning ahead of time. I'll have, the last person I interviewed, I had like 50 questions prepared. I didn't get through all of them. I didn't need to, but just in the event this person kept talking or anything, I had the information that I needed and that I wanted to get from this person. And as always, just be polite. This person's giving you their time to help you. You know what I mean? So just be courteous, and look, these things always work out, but it does take practice. Now for the survey thing, I had set up a link that we used to use here on campus. Kane had its own link. I forgot what it's even called anymore. We used to have like our own survey service here that we don't even use anymore, and I don't even think it even exists. And then the other one was something called SurveyMonkey, which does work. So if you wanted to use that, but by and large, and I spoke to some of my other colleagues, is using the Google this Google folder. Let me see what it is. Yeah, it's called Google Forms, rather, which is sort of free online surveys for personal use. It's actually pretty simple to use. So what your assignment's going to be is, somebody who's deciding to do a survey, is you're going to pool at least 25 people for the survey. So what you can just do is pool people that you feel are pertinent to your project. For instance, marketing majors, or specific music majors or something like that. Or if it doesn't have to be that specific, but these are things that you want to specify in the paper, and we can go into detail about that as we work more with the methodology. Anyway, so you want to sort of start getting familiar with how to use the Google survey, and then what we're going to do for our next assignment afterwards is going to be, and I think this is going to be due on the 31st, but I sent you the email for this, is to send everyone in the class a trial survey of 5 questions. After that, even if you're not doing a survey, just do one for fun so you can get used to it for a future need that you may need to do a survey for another course or anything like that. So just make up something, or just something that you find an interesting topic. But if you do plan on doing it, this is a good opportunity to sort of hone in and get an idea how your results are going to come out. The Google Forms has a lot of different sort of templates for you to use for what kind of questions. You can do like little videos or little pictures you can put in there. You can get pretty creative with it. But it also has templates on what kind of questions or question responses you're going to get. So the biggest problem that I've seen with students with these surveys is that they try to make the answers to their questions too black and white. So it might be a situation where someone may feel very strongly for something, someone may feel not strongly at all. So you can see in some of the templates you can put like somewhat satisfied, definitely satisfied, not satisfied, and so forth. So these kinds of different setups, because you want to give the interviewer, the person taking the survey, as much options as needed so you can get the best result. So sometimes it could be you're saying yes or no, but the person may not be sure, or they may feel somewhat degree of agreement or lesser to agree. So you have to give these variations. So they have these, again, these templates where you'll have like 4 or 5 different responses, or at a rate of 1 to 10 kind of thing. The thing is about the survey is, and I'm sure you've been approached by surveys, when you go to the Home Depot, or if you take this survey, they have to entice you somehow to use them because people don't want to do them. It's like, oh, you'll win a gift card or this or that. So people aren't going to spend a ton of time on your survey either. That's why, first of all, we're going to make it short, 5 questions. You want it for something that they can do and have no problem doing it, and then you can just go away, and then you can sort of analyze the data. So make it as easy and accessible for people as possible, because again, it's something that people just don't want to spend a lot of time doing. You know, a 5-question survey, you know, and if you do more of your formalized one, I wouldn't do any more than 10 questions, 10 max. You know, again, just put yourself in the person. Do I really want to sit here and do all this? So just get right to the point with them, okay? And as I said before, make sure that you're clear about what you're asking, and if these questions, since there's not a lot of them, that you want to make sure that these questions are extremely, important to what you're looking to get from your research, not stuff that is irrelevant. You know what I mean? Make sure you're very specific on what you're asking them and what you need to ask them from, and that should give you a better idea on how about going about doing it. Okay, so we're going to talk more about the methodology sequence kind of more and more as you kind of go through getting the data and doing the sample surveys. But again, if you look online on our Blackboard page, you'll see sort of how you want to set up that part of our paper. Okay, so essentially what you want to do is, in general, the first part of it is you're going to explain what your method process was. Why were you, again, sort of like your proposal. Why were you doing it? What were you looking to get out of it, and that kind of thing. And then after you sort of propose that, then you want to do is start going through and analyzing what the information was. So in other words, if you started, for instance, with an interview with somebody, you say, okay, I interviewed, Dr. Smith about, economic trends or whatever, criminal justice or whatever your project was. And what you want to do is, it's not you don't have to do a direct transcription of what it was, but you want to start, okay, I asked, this is the one time where you can use some first person. I know that was one thing that's common, you want to avoid with literature review. You want to sort of tell them, like, okay, I had interviewed Dr. Smith for this, and we talked about this, and the results were, these are the things. I had asked him this, and his response was, and you could use quotes. Again, these are things you want to sort of play out, and you could use the sample papers to see what other students have done with it. Or of course, when you submit it, I'll give you some tips as well. But you want to be in a manner where you're just basically explaining what you did do and what you were looking to get out of it. And then technically what your results were. This is what I found out from this person. And that's the same thing with a survey. Okay, I went to Kane University and surveyed 25 people on the subject of, whatever it is. And then sort of going, this is the results that came out. I had asked this, 20% of people had responded with this question to this. And then you can use graphs and things like that as well that are more available through the Google Forms, which is kind of neat. And then what you do is just kind of explain the results, and then a conclusion on what you've come out of it, and there may be limitations, and these are things that you're going to have to bring up in your paper too. So for example, it would have been better if you had interviewed 50 people or interviewed people from a different country or whatever it may be. And this way you sort of leave a mark of what future research could be done after you. Because there will be limitations. There's just no way around it. You know what I mean? So that might be something. But you're basically just going to explain what you did, and you're going to explain what the data is and what can you come up with some sort of conclusion. That's sort of after the draft. So if you're sort of ready for kind of starting to dive in, this is what I want you to start looking into. Start drafting. If you're an interviewer, start by contacting the person and start developing your questions. Okay. If you're doing the survey, start gathering who you're going to survey, or who you want to survey, and then what kind of questions you're going to ask them. Okay. So for this right now, again, you're going to do second draft and then start looking at the methodology. So, and then in class, and like I said, by the 31st, everyone in the course, including myself, will be getting one of your survey, your sample survey. And again, this does not have to be included in your paper. This is just a sample. But if you feel like the results are pertinent to your information, it's of course you can use it as well. Okay. All right. I hope this helps, and we'll talk soon.